And you say you were able to say the things that a straight white male is not able to say. So what are those things, Calvin, that, for example, somebody like me wouldn't be able to say?
Thankfully.
In my voice.
That this isn't a systemically racist country, that this is a fantastic place to live, one of the best places in the world to live, actually. It's the most tolerant, diverse, inclusive country in the world. And that's why people choose to live here, and people come here and make a success of themselves. And that's fantastic, and we should celebrate that. But instead we focus on the negatives, and we look at our society and every single problem, we pin it down to race these days. And it's not. Like I said earlier, I've experienced real racism. I'm not discounting people's personal lived experiences, but what I'm saying is if you look for racism everywhere, of course you'll begin to see it. And I have a real problem with, the way we're teaching young people that everything is racist and everyone is racist. As a former teacher, I see all the time this self-perpetuating myth of white supremacy, telling young people that if you're black or of an ethnic minority background, you are going to have hurdles to overcome. There are barriers that people are putting up in your life because of the color of your skin.
Calvin, but isn't that true? Isn't that true even in the way you've described your own story? You talk about growing up in a mixed-race family in the Midlands, being the victim of racism or whatever, experiencing racism. Maybe victim is the wrong word. But that would have been a barrier in your way, surely, someone being rude to you or offensive or, causing problems at school or whatever it might have been. Would that not have been an extra hurdle that your white classmates wouldn't have had to deal with?
No. And it depends where we're talking about. So it wouldn't have been an extra hurdle because as much as people were offensive to me and caused me upset, that wasn't people being discriminatory against me. So it wasn't when I went to apply for a job, they were saying no because you're brown. That was people calling me a paki in the street. And that's purely ignorance on their part because that is the wrong derogatory term for a start. But also, it doesn't mean, just because I got racially abused because I was one of the few brown people in a white town, doesn't mean that white people can't get racially abused too. And I work in London schools, for example, where white kids tend to be in the minority, actually. And I see a lot of the racism that goes on in London is towards white people these days. So anyone can be a victim of racism. And we've got to get back to reclaim our language. Racism means discrimination or prejudice against someone because of their ethnicity. It doesn't mean a power struggle between black people and white people. That's what the woke mob have tried to readjust our language to kind of win the battle by default. We've got to take the terms back and put meaning behind our words again. And I think a lot of white people at the moment are experiencing racism. I think anti-white racism is the most popular racism after anti-Semitism at the moment. It's so fashionable to be anti-white, and it's acceptable. You can talk about the white man as much as you like, and no one will blink an eyelid. No one will raise an eyebrow. It's completely okay, and I don't get why that is. We talk about institutional racism and black people being oppressed. I don't feel oppressed. Yes, I experienced racism as a child at points, but in my adult life, I don't feel oppressed. In this metropolitan city, this capital that we live in, I don't feel oppressed, but I do see oppression all around me all the time, and that is people oppressing the white man. You're not allowed to speak up if you're white. You're not allowed to have an opinion if you're white. You're not allowed to engage in these conversations if you're white. How is that not oppression?